noon here, Easterseals Rehabilitation Center officials say that about 30 local children and adults with disabilities are attending bike camp this week. It's happening at the Evansville National Guard Armory on Division Street. Organizers say that individuals with disabilities are going to learn to ride a bicycle for the very first time using a series of specially adapted bikes. Therapists and volunteers are going to accompany each participant one-on-one throughout the training, and then officials say that by the end of this 5-day training course here, the majority of those participants will be able to successfully ride a regular bike with or without training wheels or assistance.